خلينا نفرانو بفيوتنا بشيرين ببنفما الثواب ونوتي نوتامين. This is the last lesson for the letters, so actually teaching new letters. The next ones are gonna be just practicing more reading, and eventually we're gonna start like some basic grammar in the next series, but for now this is the last lesson for letters. This is actually, I would say, the toughest, simply because each letter, as you can probably see by now, would have more than one pronunciation. It's a little bit tricky. It's a lot of rules. You typically do not memorize them. It's more like you just practice seeing them more, and you probably hear their pronunciation very often. That eventually just memorize them. Same as we had last time when it comes to English, like these words here and this one and this one. Those are almost written the exact same way, but they are written, but they're pronounced completely different. Tough, thought, and thought. Well, those are the same. But yeah, those ones, they're kind of the same, but they're pronounced very differently. You don't have a rule in mind. There's actually no rules for them, I guess. I'm not sure. But typically, you just know them. And similarly for Coptic too, it does have rules, however. So it's not random. It does actually have rules. So if you follow the rules, you can read it properly. But if you think it's overwhelming, simply over time you're gonna memorize the words, and once you see a word for once, you should be able to know it once again, because the words just keep being used in church hymns. Okay, let's start with the first one. The first one here we have is the letter Ghamma. This is the letter Ghamma or Ghamma, because actually, sorry, it's pronounced as a Gha. It's a letter that does not exist in English, but it's in Arabic. So if you know Arabic, then it should be easy to pronounce it. So first of all, let's start with the exceptional letter. Its rule is pronounced as a G, as a G, if it's followed by those letters. That's the opposite of, remember, is a Jenga. It's opposite of this one. So if you have those letters and you want to pronounce as a G, you would use the Ghamma letter. So you have Ge, Gi, Gi, and Gi. Those are the letters that if you want to pronounce as a G before it, you would not use a Jenga, you would use a Ghamma. Okay. Next one we have is the pronunciation as an N. It's not actually an N. It's it's like somehow it sounds like an N, but you pronounce it from your throat. It's like when you say an uncle or mango. How you say like mango or uncle? It's actually not an N. It's this letter. It's like the N from your throat inside, and that's actually the letter itself. So, and this is if it's followed by some of those letters. Those letters are actually called throat letters, so you pronounce them from inside your throat. That's how the letter G or K or G starts from. So the word is right before it, it will become as an Ng. And actually you can see the rule very obvious when you have an N here and you have an uncle and you have a G. So if you have a kappa or you have a G, which is the Ghamma, that's actually how you pronounce the kind of the N, similar to an N sound. So this sound just, when it comes before those letters, it's pronounced as this way. And you can see that even in English, when you say mango or uncle, it's not actually an N. If you pronounce them properly, actually. Okay, so those are the two rules that we have. Otherwise, it's a G. It's a G. It's like if in Arabic, it's like this letter. Or this letter if you want to write it in French or English. It's a G. And it looks similar to a 5, that's usually how I write it, or this one. I've seen some manuscripts write it that way. Make sure it doesn't look like an XC. I just make it look like some kind of a 5 or like an S with a dash on top. This is one of the trickiest letters actually, but once you get to see it very often, you're just gonna pronounce it right away. Like now you probably know how to say angelos. It actually has 2 ghammas and with 2 different letters. You just know it because you've seen it before, and this is the same with every language. You actually don't read letter by letter. You read word per word. Just the word look the same, similar to what you've seen before. Okay, now the last one, the second one here we have is epsilon. We've seen epsilon before. We've seen it mainly in U. So it pronounces an U, and we've seen it as as a E, like as an E. That's when you see the epsilon. However, it has one more rule that we haven't covered yet, is if it's followed by, so if it's preceded by, here is followed, if it's followed, yes, that's right. Okay, now if it's preceded by an alpha or an A, it becomes a V. So if you have an A and you have put an epsilon, it becomes of or if. There are theories that I kind of agree with just in that rule, that it could be pronounced as a W. The epsilon is more like a W. But this is like later, but for the standards that everyone uses is A or A. So it's like a word if angelos or av ashk. Sorry, av masf. Mashk is af. Is it? So yeah, I think av ashk, yes. And av masf. So you say av, this becomes a V. So you see, you cannot put a beta because if you put, let's say, ab masf, it will be like, you cannot put it, will be ab masf. However, you say, want to say it av masf, so you replace it with a epsilon. Actually, the epsilon looks kind of like a V. So in a lot of translation, you see a lot of things that become V becomes either U, epsilon becomes U or V. So we have of and if. That's if it proceeded by just a or a. If it proceeded by an o, it becomes u. Not of, it just becomes an u. Otherwise, it just becomes it's an e, as we've said last time. Like a long e, like I say, I want to say feet. So this is the otherwise in all cases. So in all cases, if you don't see it preceded by a vowel, if it comes after a consonant, so if you have the word like Kyrie, there's no vowel before it, so it simply just becomes an E. However, if preceded by an O, it becomes, both of them together become an U, and if preceded by an alpha or an A, it becomes V. So I, of, or if. Okay, now we have the very last one. Yeah, it should be the very last one. Is the letter K. Sorry, the translation is pretty old. It's been like 3 years. There's actually newer translations for the book that's just more correct. I can put links for those. But that's K. K is the last letter that we have now that has more than one pronunciation. So there are two categories. There's if it's Greek or if it's Coptic. How do you know the difference? Eventually, there are ways to know the difference. But for now, just know it for now. If you, just know it. If it's a Coptic word, it's pronounced as a K, or more like a Q. Just becomes just a K sound, a simple K sound or a Q sound, simply because it becomes a little bit big, just more like you pronounce it more heavily. Okay, if it's a Greek word, has two ways. If it's preceded by those letters that we've seen before, it becomes as a sh sound. So we say cherubim. Cherubim is not a she, it's a K. So it becomes or cherubim, yeah, cherubim. Otherwise, it becomes kh, the kh sound. This one in Arabic, which means it's like Christos. You say Christos, but cherubim, and it's the same letter. And if you have a Coptic word, like the Coptic word of Egypt is kimi, so it starts with a kimi. So you see, if this is Coptic, it becomes a k, no rules. Coptic is pretty easy. Those are actually all Greek letters, that's why they're complicated. Coptic words are usually pretty simple. Coptic letters are usually pretty simple, just one pronunciation per word. When it comes to Greek, because it's kind of a foreign language, so you gotta follow the rules. Coptic is easy, Greek is annoying, but you just get used to it. And you don't see it very often, hopefully. So that's the last one. If you have a she, if you have an A on the E sound, it becomes like a she, like an sh sound. If it otherwise just become a ch sound. Okay, moving on to some pronunciation. Okay, we're gonna go letter by letter. I'm telling you that's a Coptic word. So you have the first letter is K, so it becomes a Q, you write a Q, and then you have Ita, a long E, so it becomes Ki, and then May, so it's an M, and then Iota, so Kimi. Kimi means Egypt. Okay, now next one, you have a kappa, that's a simple K. Now we have an epsilon, it's not preceded by any vowel, so it's automatically an E. So it becomes ki, and then rho, which is an R, and then iota, which is, say, put it as a Y, and then omicron, let's say yo, and then sigma, it's an S. Kyrios. Kyrios means Lord, and it's masculine. It's the same when you say Kyrie. Okay, next one, we have, I'm telling you it's Greek, so we have a K sound, so if it's a Greek, you look at what comes after it. You have an A sounds, like A, E, E, one of those sounds have an E, so it becomes an SH. And then you have the A sound, and then R, and then Omicron, and then you see Omicron, it's Omicron Epsilon coming together. So it becomes an U, and then B. So it should be a V, and then iota and M. However, if you remember from the beta rule, if it's a proper noun, it can be pronounced as a B, simply because it's a proper noun. It's the name of some angels, cherubim. In this case, cherubim. Okay, here we have an alpha. Actually, let's write it. Have an alpha, simply an A, and then a Ghamma. The Ghamma, see, look what comes afterwards. It's not an A sound, and it's not a throat sound, so it just becomes a GH. And then you have an alpha, and then P, and then eta, so agapi. Okay, next one we have an alpha 2, then we have a Ghamma. Let's look at what comes afterwards. We have another Ghamma sound, so we know it's a letter that pronounced from your throat, so it becomes as an N, the big N, like the N from inside. Then you have a Ghamma, you look what comes afterwards, it's an A sound, so it becomes a G sound. And then you have an A, so it's a G, and then simply los at the end. This is an easy one. Okay, remember this one is Psi, so it's a P and S. And then this one, there's no vowels before it, so it just becomes a simple I. And then you have a Shi, so it's a Psish, and then long E. So it's Psishi, and it's reminds you of this letter. Psych, or Psishi. Kind of similar. Well, that's where actually the words come from. And here you have Angelos. So even though it's a hard one, I think it's actually we're done. Those are more words to learn. So share it. Yeah, that you actually see that you already know how to pronounce most of them. It's pretty easy. You have shere for hail, Kyrie eleison or eleison. So if you know how to use this, you've seen how to use this. And then Kyrios, it's Lord, and Kimi, it means Egypt. Angelos, even though it has all the two rules apply, you just know how to pronounce it because you hear all the time. That's why it's easy actually to learn them simply by practice. Pi Christos is Christ or the Christ or just Christ in English, but it's in Coptic it's actually the Christ, which in so many languages like this. It's also in Arabic you put the before Christ. Then you have Agapi, and then Psishi, and then Angelos. And Psishi, you've seen a K coming, is followed by an E, a long E sound, so it just becomes like a sh sound, so Psishi. And Psishi, psychologist, like that's the study of the soul or the spirit, that's why it means spirit. You see how the words are coming from. So actually, if you learn some of those Greek letters, you're gonna see a lot of similarities when it comes to English. Quick hint if you figure out, once you see a jinkim, you know it's automatic a Coptic word, you should know how to pronounce this by yourself. Anything else? You have Greek, this is Coptic, this is Greek, inside os, this is Greek. You should know jinkim, you should know by Coptic by yourself, and this I telling you it's Greek. And this is also Greek. Sorry. And this is Greek. Let's see what's Greek in here. Here is also Greek. Here is Coptic, sorry. It's the most Coptic word, that means Egypt. Here is Greek, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And this is Greek. Yeah, simply so you know how to pronounce them properly next time. And that's it, just practice doing the homework. You have more pronunciations to do them here, and you're done. Thank you, and see you next lesson. It's just gonna be more readings, just actually practicing readings, that's it.